So much chainsaw. First of all, that chainsaw there in the background is probably going to just be a special guest on today's episode of the Handmade Harriells. Hey, I'm Marcy. Rob's probably going to be along in a minute as soon as I start playing with some of these sewing notions because he likes to play with sewing notions. Today, I'm going to show you how to insert a super simple centered zipper. I've shown you before how to do an invisible zipper, which is actually my favorite kind of zipper, but a regular old zip centered on a seam is great for fitting or when you don't want to fully commit to the fit, like on this maxi dress I'll be demonstrating on. This zip is easy to remove if you happen to fluctuate in weight. That's what's great about sewing. You can alter your own clothing to fit whatever you are at the moment, because whatever you are at the moment is beautiful. Cherish it, accept it, love your body. Make your clothing love your current body. Okay, let's go. Okay, so for this tutorial, we are using a plain old zipper right here.
I like the zippers.
He does like to play with the zippers, but actually it is not a plain old zipper as Rob is about to demonstrate. It is a separating zipper.
Separating zipper. I knew that.
You want to separate it?
Doesn't separate very well.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't. Look, it stops right there. That doesn't separate.
Is this not a separating zipper?
No, it's not.
This is not a separating
Liar!
zipper.
Liar!
Sound man is going to be so upset with you for yelling into your mic, which is 2 inches away from your mouth.
Shame, shame, shame.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to continue the tutorial now. No, come back.
No!
Please. Okay, I've got my dress here. This is my center back seam. As you can see, here's the outside of the dress with the seams all nice, and here's the inside with the raw edges of the seam allowances showing. I'm not going ahead and finishing these seam allowances like I normally would because, again, I want to take this dress on a test run. But if you were happy with the fit of your dress and you wanted to put your zipper in, go ahead and finish your seam allowances, because we want what we wear to look good on the inside as well as the outside. We're going to go ahead and pin this center back seam up. And if you have any seam junctures, be sure that those are matched up by throwing a pin in right on the stitching line. Make sure the pin on both sides lines up with that stitching line. Then we go ahead and pin up the rest of the center back seam. Matching your raw edges. I'm not matching raw edges, I'm matching selvage edges because that's what I used for my center back seam when I draped this here dress. Now we take our zipper and we compare it to the center back seam of our dress. I know my seam allowance here at the top of the dress is 3/8 of an inch, so I'm going to start the zipper head around 3/8 of an inch down from the top of the dress. And then I'm going to look at the zipper stop. Now your zipper stop might be metal and have some tape under it. Whatever your zipper stop looks like, measure about 2 inches up from that stop and throw a mark in there. Now, what this mark tells us is the type of stitching we're going to be doing. From the top of the dress to the mark where the zipper is going to live, I'm going to be using a basting stitch, a long removable basting stitch. And then from that mark on down to the hem, I'm going to be using a shorter stitch, a permanent stitch. We want this section of the seam from above the zipper stop down to be permanent, and this section of the seam where the zipper lives to be removable so that we can actually unzip our dress and wear it. I'm giving myself a nice wide seam allowance in the center back of this dress of about 1.25 inches, which means that I can take it in or let it out as the needs dictate. All right, I'm gonna take just a couple of back stitches at the beginning of this seam, because although I want to remove the basting stitches from this portion, I don't want them to go away before I'm ready for them to go away. And I am removing my pins as I stitch. So you see we're hitting our mark now. We've hit it. Shorten your stitch length to your normal permanent like stitching. For me, that's a 2.5. Take 3 stitches forwards and 3 back. And continue on down the seam. Let me just get this monstrosity onto the ironing board. She is a lot. She is a lot of fabric. Okay, I've got my seam allowance, my center back seam allowance, pressed open and flat. And we're gonna look on the inside of this seam where that mark was, where we stopped and started our basting stitching. We're going to move that mark to the inside of the seam. From here up to the top of the dress is your basting stitching, and from here down to the bottom of the dress is your permanent stitching. We're going to take our zipper and we're going to lay it right side down on top of the seam allowance, okay? Zipper coils, there they are. There's your zipper head. This is the right side of the zipper. Flip it over and lay it right side down on top of this seam allowance. Let me just get you in closer so you can actually see what it is that I'm doing here. Come closer. Come here. Come here. Place the zip head right under that mark at the top and just throw a pin in. And I'm orienting my pins in the direction I'm going to sew. I'm sewing in this direction, so my pin head is this away, so I can pull it out nice and easy when I'm sewing. You really only need a couple of pins here at the top of the zip tape. Pins will actually get in your way when you're doing this method. As we're stitching, we're going to be able to pull the zip tape up and lay it back down, checking along the way that the coils are still lying centered right down that seam line. See, if you had all those pins in the way all the way down the zip tape, you wouldn't be able to pick it up and put it down again, right? If I pick it up, can I put it down? Whatever it is, I just can't stop. And right here where our basting stops, we're going to stitch about another inch down so that we're sure we've got some nice secure stitches, so when we open up the zipper, it doesn't open up and reveal all your goods. Let's go to the machine. I've got a regular old presser foot in my machine. I'm simply going to move my needle over as far as it will go, and I'm going to use the presser foot to guide me against the zipper coil. The side of your foot, right here, will keep you in line as you're stitching. And I'm checking to be sure that my coils are right along that seam line. Just lifting up the tape every once in a while. Take some stitches. Lift up that tape. Be sure you're centered again. And stitch along. Always be sure you are not catching the front of your dress in the back of your zipper, because you won't have a dress that actually zips up. We're now at the basting mark. We're going to stitch all the way up to that basting mark and then keep on stitching I'm gonna go about a 1/2 inch below the basting mark. Raise your presser foot with your needle still sunk and rotate your dress or garment. This is gonna be a lot of fabric for you guys to look at for a minute. I'm now at a 90-degree angle. I'm gonna drop my presser foot again, and my zip coils are plastic so I can stitch over them. If you're working with a metal zipper, metal zip coils, do not stitch over your metal zip coils. You will hurt yourself or the machine. Just gonna stitch right over those coils until I reach the other side of the tape. Lift your presser foot. Turn your fabric with the needle still sunk in the fabric until you get to the other side of the zip tape. Drop your presser foot, and now I'm going to stitch from the bottom of the zip coil all the way to the top of the zip coil. Same deal here, only it's easier because you've already got one side stitched down. You don't have to worry about making sure the coils are on the seam line. Just keep it nice and flat as you sew. At the top of your zipper head, just stitch up as far as you can. Don't worry about finagling the zipper head under the foot. It's a very easy way to neaten this up after we're done with this round of stitching. Back stitch. We've got our nice long rectangle, and here's the outside of the dress, nice and centered on either side. Let's pull that right side out and watch a zipper get born, huh? We've got that sewing room essential, just as important as your sewing machine, the seam ripper. We're going to remove those basting stitches by just gently inching our seam ripper right down the middle of that seam. Now this is my mark of where my basting stitching stopped, so that's as far as I have to go. Now we can open up that zipper, and it's actually a centered zipper with a nice little overlap for the tape. Now up here at the top, we can see that we didn't get all the way up to the top of the coil because the zipper head was in the way. So now that the zipper head is out of the way, we're just going to cover up that zip tape, throw a pin in it, and do the same for the opposite side. And now you're going to take this to your machine and you're just going to stitch continuing down into the line you already stitched, because the zipper head is now out of the way and you can actually get into this area that you wouldn't have gotten into so easily while the zipper head was in the way. Normally we would sew a zipper in from the bodice down to the hem. Well, I've got my hem all down here and I am going to sew from the bottom up so that it's easier to follow that line of stitching that I started. I'm going to sink my needle right on that line of stitching to be sure that I'm still in line. I can remove my pin because I can just hold this little piece of fabric over and go ahead and stitch right on the previous line of stitching. The yellow thread morphs right into that black line of stitching. Of course, I'd probably use orange thread for this, but I want you guys to be able to see what I'm doing. Repeat for the other side of the zipper, and then we're almost done. You can see the top, the head at the top of the zipper is nice and flush with the seam line, with that little extra bit of stitching we had to do at the top. And when you unzip it, the bottom stays nice and secure because our basting stitches stopped and our permanent stitches started. Le zipper.
Like that.
You like that?
Hold it right here. No, hold this right here.
Oh, hold this.
Yeah, right there.
Hold
up top.
this
Yeah,
up top. Okay.
Zip a song, zip a song, zip, zip, zip a song, zip a song, sing it all day long. It ain't too long, but zip a song, zip song, zip a song, zip, 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 zip song, zip a song, sing it all day long. Zip a song, 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 sing along, sing along.
That was really good.
That's all I got.
That's a mic drop right there.
Oh, I didn't mic drop it then.
Oh, okay. Here.
Zip a song.
Soft mic drop. Subtle. Good song break. Almost done. We've got our garment. Here's the front of the dress, the bodice. And here is our lining, the bodice lining. To finish off the zipper, we're going to pin the bodice lining all the way around the dress, right sides together. And when we get to the back here, to the zipper part, match up your seams. And at the zipper, fold your lining around the zip tape, matching up your raw edges. Now we pin the lining all the way around. And we've arrived at the other end. Match those raw edges up, same deal, fold the excess to the inside and pin it up. Now we simply sew at our seam allowance right over those folds. I'm starting at one end of the center back seam and I'm stitching right over those folds. There you've got your zip tape encased in your lining. Now, normally I would grade the seam and clip it and notch it and understitch, but because I want to test drive the fit of this dress, I'm not going to go that far yet. If you finished your garment, go ahead and make everything all nicey nice. You can clip the top of the zipper tape to reduce bulk. For now, I'm just going to pull this lining up and flip it down to the inside along that seam line so that it lies on the inside of the garment. And then just tuck that seam allowance under a bit so it's free of the zipper tape. Again, if I was finishing this dress, I'd fold the seam allowance of the lining under and attach it to the dress, but you can see how this zipper would look. You can attach a hook and eye, or you can leave it just plain as it is at the zipper head, and this technique works for most any garment where you'd want a centered, regular zipper. I'm gonna finish up so I can take her outside for a test drive, see how the fit really feels. hem of the dress. Really? Just really? So this is just my overhead cam just coming into the shot. It's really hard when he yells into the mic when it's 2 inches away from his mouth. YouTube, crew of one. Peace out, everybody. Emphasis on peace. Zip a song, sing it all day long, zip a song.